It's your Friday Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day and the final show of the week. Really good one coming up. Phil Miller joins me here in just a few minutes. Phil was in Houston this week covering the Twins and Major League Baseball's hearing in bankruptcy court with Bally Sports North and parent company Diamond Sports. And a ruling Thursday that Phil and I will get into where the judge rules that Bally and Diamond Sports must pay the Twins what they are owed this season, $54.8 million, or risk relinquishing the rights to the Twins this year, in the middle of the season. What that all means for viewers, what that could mean in the very short term, it could very well mean, as Phil and I talk about, that games will be shown on a different channel. They will be broadcast by Major League Baseball instead of Bally Sports North. If they decide not to make that payment, if they decide not to pay in full, which was at odds right now, that could be something that changes even in the middle of this season, and that likelihood increased Thursday. So Phil and I will get into that. We'll get into the legal proceedings and some of the kind of back and forth and the animosity that we viewed and that he viewed specifically while he was the lone sports writer in the courtroom. And we'll talk some Twins, too, because they are an interesting team on the field right now with, Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, and Max Kepler all leaving Thursday's dramatic come-from-behind victory with injuries along the way, decreasing amount of severity in those. We'll see how those play out, but an interesting time for the Twins right now on multiple levels, and Phil and I will get to that in just a minute. We'll get to some NBA Finals stuff at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? Let's start with the Lynx, who lost again at home to the Connecticut Sun on Thursday night, falling to 0-6. And I thought it was notable because even though this is a rebuilding season, we probably knew that going in, and the Lynx went into Thursday's game knowing they would be without Diamond Miller, their number 2 overall pick, who's dealing with an ankle injury suffered a couple games ago. We knew that this was going to be a struggle for them. Nonetheless, this is a team, a franchise, and especially a head coach / president of basketball operations, Cheryl Reeve, who is used to winning, who's been here through the best of times, through the 4 WNBA titles that they won from 2011 through 2017, through a transition period that was still awfully good. The Lynx were still a playoff team even after Maya Moore's departure, Lindsay Whalen's departure. Even through all that, they remained a playoff team. Fell out of the playoffs last season into the lottery, wound up with the number 2 overall pick. Now this season, a look ahead, they figured they were going to be, it would be a struggle, get players playing time, get some experience, kind of gear up for 2024. Still, even if you accept all of that, you do not want to be 0-6, and that is where the Lynx are right now. It doesn't feel good to be 0-6, even if you understand why, even if there is maybe a greater good coming in 2024. And I think that was some of the tone of Cheryl Reeve post-game, lamenting a lot of the defensive breakdowns of this team. They gave up 89 points. They're second to last in the league right now in defensive efficiency. A lot of other defensive metrics way down on the list. Nafisa Collier had 30 points in last night's game. That's a good sign from her. But if you can't stop anybody, you're not going to win a lot of games. So this was Reeve after the game. You could sense, I think, the frustration in her voice after she was basically asked, "Are you frustrated?"
You got to win your home games, and it's not okay. It's not okay to come out and just you need stops and just throughout the game. It's just not okay to give up layups when you have a team right there and you give up layups. Because you don't know what the play that's coming. Katie sits there and tells them what play is coming. You still get layups on us. Come out of timeouts, layups. Come out of the break, like you said, transition, layups. So it's not okay. Our fans adore us. They expect different from us. That's what I'm frustrated with. It's not okay.
It's a long season, longer than most in the WNBA. They're going to play 40 games this year. Usually, I think the schedule has been 34 or 36 games in the WNBA, so a longer schedule, a longer amount of time for them to get better, but also a longer amount of time, if this is indeed a rough season to kind of take their lumps, to get better. In the moment, though, I think I get what she's saying. They this is unacceptable. It's not okay to give up the kinds of baskets they're giving up, to lose the way they're losing. She basically said she thinks they could be 4-2 right now pretty easily if they had just made some of those more critical plays down the stretch. And that's heartening in one sense because, as I wrote the other day and talked about the other day, when a team is close, if you add one or two really good pieces to that, you can go from being a bad team to a good team very quickly. And that's kind of what happened when they drafted Maya Moore in 2011. So can they kind of recapture that next year is a valid question, but how soon they can turn it around this year is probably a better question, and that's the one that's frustrating Cheryl Reeve right now in the moment.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Let's bring in the busiest man at the Star Tribune right now, Phil Miller, Twins beat writer. I don't know how many bylines you had Wednesday, Thursday covering Twins, Astros, and all of this bankruptcy court stuff that was happening at the same time in Houston, even on the same day. Wednesday must have been a 15, 16-hour day. I don't know how you did it, but I'm glad you did because it was fascinating theater. And then on Thursday, later Thursday, we got word, Phil, that there was a ruling in bankruptcy court and judge saying that Bally Sports North, yes, Diamond Sports, yes, you must pay the Twins and these other teams basically what they are owed on their contract. And that could trigger all sorts of things, even in the midst of this season. You could see the broadcast rights changed and revert to Major League Baseball sometime during the middle of this year. We don't know exactly the timeline, but Phil, some interesting theater, some interesting stuff revealed during these proceedings, and some interesting days ahead, I would imagine, for the Twins and their TV situation.
Yeah, Twins win. They took 2 out of 3 from the Astros and 1 out of 1 from Diamond Sports. Yeah, it was a big week for the Twins in Houston. They spent 2 days in federal court, federal bankruptcy court, and it was a fascinating day. And basically, the Twins 2 months ago, the Twins' TV partner, Bally Sports North, decided to miss a payment of the money that they pay them every year to televise Twins games. Skipped a payment, even though they continued to televise games, and the Twins went to court and said, this isn't how that works. You need right. to, if you're going to televise our games, you need to pay us for them, bankruptcy or not. And it was Wednesday was a fascinating day because Commissioner Rob Manfred testified on behalf of the Twins, Guardians, Diamondbacks, and Rangers, who were all similarly stiffed by their networks. And it was a battle. It was contentious. It was he's a lawyer. The room was full of, it looked to me like 4 dozen lawyers and 1 sports writer, and easy to pick out, I'll tell you. And it was an interesting battle. But yes, the Twins won today, and now we wait to see what it means. But they know that if Bally's going to continue televising them, they have to be paid in full, no discounts, and we'll see what happens. And Bally's now has a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I would here in June, to decide whether or not they're going to but basically play it out to the end of the season, 4 more months. I myself have a hard time believing, because the Twins contract expires in October at the end of the season. I have a hard time wondering why Bally would go on if they know that the end is near, but there are some ancillary reasons why their parent company might want to keep as many teams in the fold as long as they can while they negotiate other things. So we don't know for sure what it means for the Twins. My prediction is by July 1st, Bally Sports North will no longer be televising the Twins.
And in that case, Major League Baseball will take over the broadcast of the games, the distribution of the games. They've already done that now with the Padres. That was kind of happening simultaneously, a different scenario because this was not part of, the bankruptcy court proceedings or this kind of emergency injunction that was filed. This was, the Padres, Bally just basically walked away from that deal saying it was a money loser. They weren't going to honor it. And now Major League Baseball takes that over. So that's a little bit different, but I would imagine some of the parameters of it could be the same where you're seeing, Major League Baseball lining up distribution through kind of your traditional means, your direct TV, your other kind of major cable players, but also offering a direct to consumer in-market option that's just not available right now. If you don't have, cable or satellite right now, or the some of the other similar streaming services that are more like cable and satellite, you can't get the Twins right now. You don't have access to them because there is no in-market direct-to-consumer model. But in San Diego, they're offering those games for, I think, $19.99 a month or $75 for the rest of the season. That sort of thing could come here. So kind of the upshot is if this does change, sooner rather than later, if this happens, like you say, by July 1st or whenever it does, it's not going to happen tomorrow, I wouldn't think. I don't think that's going to happen quite that fast. But if it does happen in the next month, there could be this option for people who don't have it right now. And then other people who do have the more traditional cable satellite will be kind of saying, okay, well, now where do I find the game? And I think with the Padres, it's like it just shows up on your TV as like San Diego Padres baseball. It's like it's not that much different, but it is a different kind of, okay, this changed fast.
Yeah. And we should say that a lot of consumers might not notice a big difference. Dick Bremer and Justin Morneau and most of Roy Smalley, most of the guys that broadcast with him are Twins employees.
Yes,
and they would continue to be part of the broadcast. Most of the camera operators and the technical people are freelancers who the Twins would just hire. MLB would hire to produce the games. The pre and post games would be completely different because those are
Bally's employees, right?
Those are Bally's employees. They do Wolves and Wild too. So we wouldn't have that, and might not have pre and post game shows at all. And you're right. The games would, if you have Comcast, if you have DirecTV, the games will just show up on a different channel, and you would be informed of that. The big challenge, the big change might be that if you don't have cable TV, if you don't subscribe to, I think DirecTV's streaming service carries them. But
right,
if you don't have any of that, you can still just pay the Twins, like you say, $20 a month or whatever for the rest of the year. Price is still to be set, and you can watch them. You can stream them on your TV, on your devices. That is the model that Commissioner Rob Manfred has made clear he wants to go to, where Twins fans in Houston and San Diego can just and also St. Paul and Maple Grove can just pay a fee and watch Twins games when they want and not have to subscribe to another carrier that has them.
No, among the more interesting things, like you said, was Manfred and kind of the contentiousness of some of the testimony, kind of understanding that this kind of goes back, 3-4 years to a relationship between MLB and Diamond Sports that was kind of fraught from the beginning. I think that he kind of alluded to, this was in your story the other day, just alluded to some tensions right away between the sides, like Diamond kind of coming in and talking about things they wanted to do, rights they didn't necessarily have, things like that. And maybe Major League Baseball getting a little bit uneasy from the beginning. And, like you said, too, when we were talking before we started recording, like Major League Baseball was the runner-up in the bidding for all of these RSNs back, 4 years ago when they were originally, sold by Fox Sports, acquired by ESPN, but then they had to offload them as part of kind of a different package. And then Diamond Sports, Sinclair, their parent company, winds up with them. But Major League Baseball wanted this package 4 years ago, and maybe now is eyeing this as an opportunity to get control of some of these channels that they didn't get 4 years ago.
Well, I can tell you, watching Rob Manfred, I was in the courtroom watching him testify, and you can tell baseball is offended by how this has happened. Because quick backstory, this is all triggered by Disney Corporation bought 20th Century Fox, and Disney owns ESPN. And so the Justice Department ruled that it's an antitrust violation for them to also own all these regional sports networks.
Right.
So they sold them. Sinclair Broadcasting bought them and outbid Major League Baseball, which, yes, did want to keep them. But in buying them for $10.5 billion, even though the number of subscriptions to cable TV and satellite TV are declining with all the cord cutters, they paid that much money and they leveraged it with like $8 billion of debt.
Yeah.
And it's that debt that is causing them to go into bankruptcy, not the rights fees. But because they're out of money, they're taking it out. Baseball certainly feels like they're taking it out on them. They're just skipping payments because some of their contracts lose money and they want to get rid of them. So they're using bankruptcy to do it. Rob Manfred was very combative, and he talked about how the chairman of Sinclair Broadcasting came to his office and said,
"Yeah,
if you don't give us concessions, and we want to do gambling, we want to do ticketing, we want to do selling merchandise, if you don't give us those rights for free, basically, we're going to do this. We're going to put it in bankruptcy, and we're going to try to get out of any contracts that we don't like." So it was a really combative couple hours of testimony, entertaining as heck.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Even just reading it, I was like, it came through in your story. I was like, this got a little bit contentious.
The commissioner is a lawyer too, and he fought back. There were objection this and Your Honor that, and it was entertaining. But yeah, the bottom line is that baseball feels like the victim here, and the Twins are kind of an innocent victim. As Dave St. Peter, the team president, pointed out in his testimony today, the Twins make $54.8 million a year from Fox Sports North, which
Bally Sports North. Yeah.
Bally Sports North, which first of all is a lot more than we realized. They have done a good job of keeping that figure secret. But he testified that Bally's proposed a new 5-year deal that started at $54 million. And then they go to court claiming that the rights are not fair market value.
Right.
It was, I was not surprised that the Twins won that lawsuit. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot to Twins fans, other than it means almost certainly, I think, the end of Bally Sports North televising them. But it was just a fun spectacle to watch, and I can't even imagine how much the lawyers earned over the last couple of days.
Well, and some of this too, I think, has unraveled, at least locally, because of frustration. I think certainly that the Twins have felt, and probably Rob Manfred has felt, as Bally, as Diamond Sports has had these properties, and there's been not just, the cord cutting, but losing a lot of these contracts with,
right.
Dish Network is a bigger one, but, Hulu, YouTube TV, all these streaming services, those rights, evaporated 2 or 3 years ago, right after they kind of took over. And a lot of people who had, picked up these kind of, less expensive month-to-month contract kind of options that had these channels in the beginning and suddenly didn't, were pretty upset. And they, suddenly they were losing 25, 30, 40% of their potential audience. And now you're seeing like San Diego saying, hey, our reach is 3 times as big as it used to be potentially. It's not like everybody's going to suddenly subscribe, but like I would imagine the Twins reach potentially, if Major League Baseball takes over, they'll be able to reach a larger number of customers simply by the fact that they will have this, what we'd imagine would be a direct-to-consumer option. And, I think that was part of the deterioration of the relationship too, certainly from the Twins standpoint.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they would like to just have an MLB app, which actually does exist, or even a Twins app where you just go to watch the games. Yeah, it was frustrating for them that because of cord cutting, YouTube and Dish Network and all the others didn't want to pay the rights fees that Bally Sports North, when it was Fox Sports North, used to be able to command. It got too expensive, and so it in turn it so frustrates baseball that this whole got sidetracked, and now they're not reaching consumers that want to buy their product.
Yes.
And so you could see that frustration coming out, and I think that they want these contracts. There are still 14 teams that have contracts with Diamond Sports and Bally's. They want those contracts fulfilled. There's a lot of money at stake, but Rob Manfred, when we saw him in spring training, made clear that he wants one-stop shopping for baseball, that however you get it, on cable, on satellite, streaming, anyway, that you can just go to one place, pay the fee, and get all the games that you want to watch. That's the model that they have in mind. And I could tell you that you could just permeated the courtroom, that they just feel like this grand plan has been sidetracked by an entity that overpaid for the networks and then mismanaged them, and now they're going through a summer of trying to reset things.
I used to not like Rob Manfred for a lot of different reasons. That is one of the worst commissioners in sports history. But man, between this and the pitch clock, he's kind of coming back to neutral for me, at least. It's quite an about face for Rob Manfred at least in my esteem.
Yeah, as someone who admires a combative wit, I enjoyed Manfred's performance in court, but I wouldn't want to be the target of it.
No,
he might be difficult to be around sometimes when he's in that mood. But you're right. How long have we complained about the evolving changes in baseball that were to the negative? And I did not think the pitch clock would work. And I'm happy to say I was wrong about that, and got to give him credit. He pushed that through, and it has changed the pace of games.
Yeah, it has. Well, we'll see what happens the rest of what happens with the result of this. But again, just kind of to reiterate, the upshot is Twins won in court, Major League Baseball wins in court, and it could mean within a matter of weeks that these games are shown differently and are available to a wider audience, including people who don't have traditional cable or satellite and just want to pay for Twins games and can now get them in market. Because that's been a big frustration too. Like the blackout rules, basically, like you could get Twins games, you could buy the whole Major League Baseball package if you live in Oakland or Seattle or Fort Lauderdale. You can't get them if you live in Minneapolis, because that's not the way it's operated, because they wanted to protect these rights that are now worth less.
Yeah, and so change is coming, and if baseball can get the rights under control, change for the good. It's interesting to think about what it would have been like had baseball won the contract for the networks. They would have had far less debt than Sinclair took on, so they wouldn't have been so financially constricted. And Rob Manfred said, we had big ideas. People tell me, boy, you really dodged a bullet by that sale not going through. And he said, yeah, he doesn't really agree with that. Not so much.
Well, as long as I got you here, Phil, I might as well ask you a couple Twins questions too before we let you finally go to bed and get some rest
I'm a court reporter, Mike.
After a long week. I'm a court reporter, not a baseball reporter. But the series in Houston was interesting in its own right. They finally got some hits with the bases loaded, and they come home Thursday, get a walk-off win over Cleveland, rally for 7-6 win in that game, but in the process lose their 3, 4, and 5 hitters to various levels of injury. Buxton gets hit by a pitch, leaves the game with a rib injury. Correa has an inflammation of the plantar fasciitis that's been bothering him. He leaves the game, and Max Kepler, I read he has a migraine. So that's not great when your 3, 4, and 5 hitters go out, although their replacements did just fine, and none of those three have especially been knocking the cover off the ball lately. But just what do you make of the roster right now? A good win, 3 out of 4, but still kind of middling along in this pretty bad AL Central.
Well, a couple things. First of all, regarding that AL Central, I saw the starting lineup. Bally's put up the Guardians starting lineup, and next to each player it had their OPS.
Yes,
which is an unusual for them. And I noticed that 8 of the 9 Guardians in the starting lineup had an OPS below 700.
Yikes.
I did not realize just how toothless the Guardians have been in May and going forward. They seem like much less of a threat than I had imagined them to be earlier in the year. If they, boy, Twins fans think they're not hitting, wow, that was something. It's been clear for a couple of weeks that Byron Buxton, despite not playing center field, is a little bit hobbled, that his knee still barks at him every once in a while, and he's kind of going through that. You really got to watch Buxton when he's not running the bases, because he's slow to get up and he walks around, and you can tell that something's bothering him. Correa, we knew that his heel and foot have been bothering him. That's a little worrisome. Rocco said that he thought Correa could play through it, and that was the plan. But he hasn't hit in a month and a half or so, gone on any kind of a streak. So, they're kind of waiting for him to kind of pull it together, and this feels like another setback. So, I'm not sure what to make of that. But the Houston series was heartening. They did get some big hits. The pitching has just remained fantastic. Sonny Gray and Louis Varland were just tremendous in Houston. So they seem to be managing to, in Gray and Varland starts, they scored 7 and 8 runs. So
right.
They still have it in them. Getting Polanco back is big. Getting Royce Lewis in the lineup, I think, will help a lot. But yeah, they're just like last year. They're just kind of holding it together while guys try to get healthy.
Yeah, Lewis had a big home run Thursday that got them back into that game before they won it in the 9th. I mean, he seems to have given them, hitting is one thing, but just a little bit of energy. Like he's, a young player, an athlete, as Royce likes to describe him, just a guy who you notice his athleticism right away when he steps on the field, especially in comparison with some of these other guys that maybe are on the field with him.
Well, he's the overall number 1 pick, and these guys are supposed to be superstars, and we've known for a few years that he has it in him. It's another thing to do it at the major league level, and not everybody can, but he's going to turn 24, I think, next week, and he's coming into his prime. He's had a couple of setbacks. He's had to sit out a couple of years, but this should be Royce Lewis's team, and within the next couple of years. And I didn't think necessarily that we would see it right away the first week he gets back, but there's a reason why expectations are pretty high for that guy, and just having him around, really, he's just an effervescent personality.
Yeah.
his teammates love him. I said to Rocco in Houston, do you think it's exhausting being that upbeat all the time? And Rocco said, man, I don't know. You'd have to ask him because he never stops. So it's a good thing to have. But they are pulling through. I think 2 out of 3 in Houston was a really good sign for him.
Yeah, I agree. Final thought, I guess. Matt Wallner is just on it. He was hitting well here before he got sent down, kind of a numbers game when Kepler came off the injured list. He's been on a tear with St. Paul since he went down. I think it was like 8 for 15 or something in that series in Buffalo. The Buffalo announcers were just listening to some of the clips of the highlights. I think he had 2 or 3 home runs in that series too. They were just like, who is this guy? He's just like, he puts a barrel on everything. Like, this is a guy that seems like a ready-made replacement whenever they finally decide that it's not worth keeping Max Kepler out there whenever he decides he's healthy. What do you think of Wallner and how soon he just arrives for good? Because it seems like he's pretty close to ready.
It does. I think if Max Wallner was the fielder in the outfield that Max Kepler is, he would be the unquestioned starter now. Matt isn't as bad as I think his reputation sometimes.
He robbed a 3-run homer on Thursday, so there you go.
Yeah, well, there you go. I do think that he is the future, but then there's Trevor Larnach and and Max when he's healthy. So I think they kind of wrestle with that, but it's the kind of situation where if somebody just steps forward and seizes it, I think the Twins would stop juggling. It feels like, let's try this and let's try that. And now he's got pneumonia and,
right.
And, Max has got a hamstring thing. And, Wallner, when he came up, he didn't hit for, the first 3 or 4 days. He was only up a week. But he did hit the last day or two, and then just carried it into the minors. The job is right there for the taking, and I think the Twins are ready for anybody to just step forward and take it. And maybe this is the start of Matt Wallner doing that.
Yep. Well, we'll see. We'll see when and if he gets back to the big leagues, what channel he's playing on. We'll see what all of that, how all that shakes out. But Phil, I really appreciate your time, your reporting from Houston on all of this, and just an interesting dynamic. And we'll see kind of how this, what's the next chapter in this. But it sure seems like they could be headed for something in the nearer term than I might have imagined before the season started, but now seems far more likely now. For now, though, Phil, I'm going to let you go get some rest. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Mike. It was good talking to you.
Great stuff from Phil Miller, as always. I know I probably say that almost after every interview I do, but I truly mean it every time, but I especially mean it this time with Phil, who just did a tremendous job in Houston covering this very important subject. I've talked about it so much and written about it so much over the years, but now that it's kind of coming to a head, for him to be there, to kind of get the tone of what was going on, to get a lot of those important facts revealed, to get them out there and to bring them to you, the reader, the listener, to kind of understand that, hey, this is changing. This could be a change very soon in how you consume Twins baseball. I thought that was just tremendous work by him all week, while simultaneously covering a baseball team that's pretty interesting as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope Phil gets some sleep, some good news for him and for the Star Tribune. Bobby Nightingale Jr. just started kind of a co-beat writer with Phil. And we'll have Bobby on the show next week to introduce him to you. He'll be covering a lot of Twins games very soon and helping out Phil. We've had a lot of other writers kind of filling in along with Phil and doing a great job. But I think Phil is very excited to have someone else full-time on the beat with him, and Bobby just started, and he'll be on the beat now with Phil coming up. So I'll talk to him, like I said, next week to kind of introduce him a little bit to you and to get his knowledge of the Twins and Major League Baseball and kind of set the scene for years to come of that kind of coverage. So hope you enjoy that next week. Right now, let's finish with the cooler. Nuggets take game one over the Heat, 104-93, and it was kind of I wouldn't say it was a game that lacked drama because I thought it was a good game, but it was just kind of one of those games where you watched it and you felt like the Heat were never really in it. And when you watch a game and you feel that way, as I kind of felt with, when I watched even the Nuggets playing the Wolves in the first round, I felt that way in a lot of games too, where I thought the Wolves were playing fine. It's just that the Nuggets were a flat-out better team. I got that feeling watching Game 1 as well. Now, the Heat are a better team than the Wolves were, and I think the Heat with Jimmy Butler will definitely come back in Game 2 and could get back into this series pretty easily and post a win in that game. But I think the Nuggets showed something in Game 1 that this is their series, for the taking, and that I fully expect them to win this one in maybe 5 games. I don't know. I'm not gonna go too far out on a limb, but this just feels, after watching Game 1, seeing how that all played out, seeing how these matchups go, it does feel like this is their series for the taking, and we'll know more as it goes on. But that's my impression after just one game of the series. And that'll do it for me. Should be lots of good stuff coming up next week. Like I said, Bobby Nightingale Jr. expected to join me on a show next week, probably some high school sports content next week. And expecting ESPN's Bobby Marks to join me, too, to talk about the Wolves offseason, some of their looming questions, including Karl Anthony Towns, salary cap stuff, and other directions for them. So hope you enjoy that on a show next week as well. That will do it for me today. I'll be back on Monday with Royce. Until then, have a great weekend. We'll see you then.